Hi, my name is Claire Chen, and I'm presenting research with my collaborators at Carnegie Mellon University, Dillon, Hamsini Ravishankar, Alexandra Lee, Yuvraj Agarwal, and Lorrie Cranor. In this study, we investigated the effect of IoT security and privacy label information complexity on consumer comprehension and behavior. With IoT security and privacy threats evolving and becoming more prevalent, consumers want more information about IoT security and privacy when making purchasing decisions, but do not have a reliable and effective means of accessing it. Prior research has shown that consumers are willing to pay more for devices with better security and privacy when the information is available. A number of countries around the world have adopted new requirements to put cybersecurity labels on IoT devices. In the US, the White House issued an executive order in 2021 directing NIST to develop criteria for IoT cybersecurity labeling. In 2023, the White House unveiled a US cyber Trustmark that would indicate an IoT device meeting established cybersecurity criteria. And in early 2024, the FCC adopted a first set of rules for IoT cybersecurity labeling. There are many details still to be worked out, including what information exactly will be included in a cybersecurity label. Under the FCC-approved labeling program, voluntary IoT cybersecurity labels would include the US Cyber Trustmark, a QR code for more details, and potentially additional information. While consumers seem to want more security and privacy information about IoT devices, some IoT device manufacturers and retailers have expressed concerns about space constraints when placing labels on physical product packaging. Instead, they're advocating for compact package labels that include only the Cyber Trustmark and a QR code. Consumers who scan the QR code would have access to additional information. To inform the discussion about how much information to include on the label, our research questions focus on evaluating the impact of IoT label information complexity on consumers' understanding, interactions, and preferences. We assessed the influence of individual label attributes on consumers' purchasing decisions and the effect of a brief educational intervention and demographics. We tested low, medium, and high complexity IoT security and privacy label designs. Each label included the US Cyber Trustmark and a QR code that users could scan to retrieve a more detailed label. We also tested an ultra-high complexity design available by scanning the QR code on the high complexity design. We conducted an online survey of 518 crowd workers on Prolific who purchased IoT devices in the past 3 years. We paid participants 50 cents for completing our screening survey and $5 for completing our main study, which took about 12 minutes to complete. We randomly assigned participants to view labels with either low, medium, or high information complexity. Users who scanned QR codes on the low complexity and medium complexity labels were shown the high complexity label on our website. And those who scanned the QR code on the high complexity label were shown an even more detailed label. Once on the website, those seeing the high complexity label online could press a button or scan another QR code leading to the ultra high complexity label. Participants were shown labels for 3 fictitious smart thermostats in a simulated IoT device purchasing scenario and were asked to answer some of the questions. Participants in the high complexity condition saw all the most detailed information. We designed the 3 fictitious products so that they had differences in their security and privacy practices that were clearly different on the high complexity labels. Those in the medium complexity condition only saw limited information unless they scanned the QR code. Those in the low complexity condition couldn't tell the difference between these devices at all unless they scanned the QR code. Given its recent launch, many consumers have not gained awareness of the US Cyber Trustmark. Therefore, we randomly assigned half of the participants in each complexity group to view a brief educational intervention, introducing the Trustmark and QR code prior to beginning the survey. Participants who viewed the educational intervention had to correctly answer questions about the Trustmark before proceeding with the rest of the survey. Now, I'll present a few highlights from our results. We have many further results you can read about in the paper. In our simulated IoT device purchasing scenario, we asked participants which device they would purchase. We explained to participants that the devices were the same except for their security and privacy features. We found that higher complexity labels enable more than half of the participants to select the device with the best security and privacy, shown in blue, whereas almost 70% of participants seeing the low complexity label reported having insufficient information to make a purchase decision, shown in dark gray. We wanted to know whether participants thought the amount of information on each label was about right, too little, or too much. We found that participants rarely reported that the labels had too much information, even if they saw the high complexity labels. However, most participants in the low complexity label group thought the labels did not have enough information. Almost half of participants in the medium complexity group also thought the labels did not have enough information. Only in the high complexity group, a large majority of participants thought the amount of information was about right. We found these differences to be statistically significant across label complexity groups. At the end, we showed participants all 4 label designs and asked them which they would prefer to see on product packaging. Labels with higher information complexity were overwhelmingly favored, with 99% of participants preferring those options. Participants provided open-ended responses explaining their dislike for the low complexity labels. One participant remarked, "The details should be directly on the label. No business should expect a customer to scan some random QR code." Another participant added, "I need more clarification about who it shares the information with directly on the label." One IoT purchaser who saw the low complexity label said, "Any information on security and privacy would help. This doesn't give much info." Further, one brought up concerns about accessibility. "I want more information on the label itself. Many people do not know how to use QR codes or do not have the technology or experience to use it." And a participant highlighted consumers' need for convenience. "It's a lot faster for me to read the label that is already there, as opposed to scanning a QR code." We asked participants questions about what the cyber Trustmark represents. As you can see from the red bars, participants who were shown the educational intervention demonstrated better understanding of the Trustmark's purpose. We asked participants how much influence each of the label attributes had on their purchasing decisions. We determined that among all label attributes, the QR code and cyber Trustmark had the least influence on consumers' purchasing decisions. On the other hand, we see that all of the security and privacy-related information was somewhat or extremely influential. Note that participants were interested in seeing security information such as security updates and access control, as well as privacy information, such as sensor data and data collected, stored, shared, and sold. As shown in blue, most participants did not scan the QR code on any of the labels. Those in the low complexity group were somewhat more likely to scan, as they actually couldn't answer any questions without scanning. But even so, most did not scan. Those who saw the educational intervention were slightly more likely to scan the QR codes, with the biggest difference being seen in the low complexity group. Some reasons why participants were reluctant to scan the QR codes include inconvenience, concerns over the security of scanning QR codes, and the hassle of repeatedly scanning to compare device information. One participant wrote, "I am a little wary of scanning random QR codes, unless I already know that I can trust the source, as I've heard about malicious QR codes." There was no statistically significant impact of age, technical background, and gender on our main survey responses. However, we did find some small differences between the younger and older participants. Compared to older participants, younger participants in the 18 to 35 age group had a stronger preference for the medium complexity label, were less willing to scan QR codes, and reported to be less likely to take privacy-related actions. In conclusion, our results suggest that consumers strongly prefer to have information on product packaging, and they do not want a label with only a Trustmark and QR code. IoT purchasers demonstrated interest in both security and privacy-related attributes. While educational intervention improved understanding of the QR code's purpose, it had a limited effect on scanning behavior. Furthermore, usability issues with QR codes inhibit the effectiveness of a low complexity label. As the US Federal Communications Commission moves forward with specifying the details of the US cybersecurity labels, we believe our results can help inform label design and ensure the labels will actually meet consumer needs. Hi, my name is Claire